This is a video on making the Brick Breaker game on Scratch. So I will be going step by step on how to build that. As I go through step by step, I will briefly talk about why I do that particular code writing and try to pay attention because you will need that information the next time that you are making your own video game. That way you understand the process. All right. So since I'm working on the computer and I'm doing work, first thing I should be doing is saving my work. I'm gonna call this Brick Breaker game. And if you go to File, go Save Now, it automatically saves it. Um, let's talk about, or let's briefly talk about what you're seeing on the screen. First off, this part right here, if you look at this box, this white box that has this cat, has this green flag, this stop sign, and then the name of the game, this is what the user will see. So when you share this with your friends or your family, this is what they will be looking at. This bottom part, where it says sprites, sprites are the objects. So Scratch calls them objects. Um, Other programs will call them variables. There's different names. Scratch just likes to call these objects or the things that you're going to be using in your program sprites. This part right here is almost like your control panel. This is what you're going to be using in order to program what you're making. This area right now that is blank, it's not going to be blank in a couple of minutes, but this is where you're going to be doing your code writing. So this is where you're going to be doing all the work. All right, so we're going to be doing the Brick Breaker game. The Brick Breaker game is one where the paddle is going back and forth. There's a ball and it hits blocks. So I do not need a cat. So I'm going to just delete this cat and make my own. If you hover your mouse over the paintbrush, notice it says paint new sprite. So I'm going to paint a new, oh, I made two by accident. I'm going to paint a new sprite. And the sprite I'm going to be making is actually the paddle. Let's go to convert to vector. And the reason being is because I'm trying to make a square and something that is going to be moving in the game. I'm going to go to the rectangle. I want it to be solid. And now I'm going to make a paddle. I'm going to make mine black. All right, I'm going to move this somewhere towards the middle. And there is my paddle. Now if I go to script, I'm going to start now programming what this object should be doing or what this sprite should be doing. First of all, like every video game, we need to tell the user, hey, you need to do something in order to start the game. In Xbox, they'll say press start or press any button. In this case, we're going to tell the user, hey, you need to press the green flag. So we're going to, and here's that green flag. We're going to tell the user, hey, the game starts when you press the green flag. Now I want this paddle to move the entire time the game is happening. So I'm going to go to control and I'm going to look to forever because I want it to happen the entire time of the game. And notice these almost work like Lego pieces. So if I put it near there, it's going to want to connect and it connects. So I'm going to put the forever and I want it to follow the mouse. So I want to use the mouse. So when I move the mouse to the left, the paddle goes to the left. When it goes to the right, the paddle goes to the right. So I want it so that it follows the mouse. So I'm going to go to my motion and I want it to go point towards mouse pointer. Okay? All right. And when it does that, I want it to move, let's say 10 steps. So right now the program is saying, hey, when you press this green flag, I want it to go wherever the mouse is pointing and I want it to move to 10 steps. And let's actually test that. Let's hit the green button and notice it's going where it should be. But notice what's weird. What's strange about this is that it's kind of moving in a circular motion. And if you recall with the game, the paddle stays horizontally. It doesn't move in a circular motion. It doesn't go vertical. So let's hit the I and notice right here it says rotation style. and it's this little circle, meaning that it's going to go in a circular motion. Let's hit this dot, that way it's in a fixed position. And notice now it's in a fixed position. However, it's still going vertical, and I don't want it to go vertical. This is where the power of math, or this is where we're going to start using some of our math skills that we've learned in class. And if we go to set y, so think of this as a coordinate system. If I put this here, I'm going to set it to a y-axis. So remember, your y-axis is vertical. I'm going to set it in a particular point on the y-axis, and let's say negative 130. And now if I hit that, notice it's here in the bottom. So now it doesn't go up and down because I set it in a particular point on the y-axis. Now if I want this lower, just like you learn in math, that means that this needs to be a more negative number. So I'm going to put 140, and it goes down. Let's say I don't like it. Let's say 160. And we'll do, oh, I like the way that one is. So there's our paddle. It's moving back and forth. So that is the first part that I need to do. So if you notice, this particular game is saying, hey, when you press start, I want you to move the paddle forever, and I want it to move 10 steps, and I want this paddle to stay at negative 160, at the y-axis of negative 160. However, let's put where the paddle is always on the same spot when the game begins. So let's put that in between there, and let's put 60 and negative 160. So this means that when I press this green flag, the paddle is always going to be in the same position. So it's going to start in the same spot, and then you can move it around. So let's put, there it is. And notice the paddle was somewhere right here. Somewhere right here. And watch, if I press the stop button and I press go, it moves the paddle back to where it should be. So it doesn't matter. The paddle always starts in that same position. All right, now that I'm done with the paddle, now I'm going to be doing the next object. So let's go back. This is my sprite. And you can change the name of the object. Let's actually change this to paddle. So I have my paddle, and now I'm going to work with the second part, which is the ball. All right, in order to do the ball, we're going to make a new sprite. And this time, we're going to do it differently by hovering where this face, like this cartoon face is at, where it says choose sprite from library. Scratch has a library that has many different objects that you can grab from. So let's look for something that has a ball. We have one that is a yellow ball. We have a soccer ball, basketball, ball. We can do a tennis ball, but I'm gonna choose a soccer ball. You could choose whatever ball you like. I'm gonna choose a soccer ball, and now here I have a soccer ball. Now with this soccer ball, I can now code it where it's going to be bouncing around. So now let's give it some, let's program it a little bit. And by programming it, let's go to events, because remember, this is going to start when the game starts. So we're going to go to events when you hit the green flag, and we want it to bounce forever. So in order to bounce forever, we're going to go to control. We're going to go again to the forever loop. And we're going to say, if we go to motion, if on the edge, so let's say it hits the edge of this screen, I want it to bounce. So down here it says if on edge, bounce. So we're going to put that there. And let's say, let's do this every 10 steps. So when it moves 10 steps, if on edge, it's going to bounce. And now let's see what it does. Let's press start. So notice the ball is bouncing back and forth. However, it's not bouncing everywhere. It's not doing exactly what I want it to do. So and if you notice, if you think math, because throughout this game, think the things you've learned in math, it's going only on the x-axis. So it's only going back and forth. Now, if we think angles, this ball right now is going 180 degrees just back and forth, or 0 degrees. There's no angle to this. So in order to add an angle, I'm going to point it to a direction. So before it starts bouncing, let's point it to a direction and let's do 135. Now, why am I choosing 135? I can choose 45. If I choose 45, it's going to point upward. However, I want the ball to point downward. So I'm going to put 135 degrees. If I do 135 degrees, let's see what happens. And there's the ball. It is bouncing back and forth. Now, I want the ball to start just like we did in the paddle. I want the ball to always start in a specific direction every time the game starts. So let's go to, and let's put it at the origin, 0, 0, 0. And let's see where it starts. So notice if I stop the game and I press start, it always starts in the same direction. So it doesn't matter. If you notice right now the ball is over here. If I press start, it's going to put it back in the origin. So the ball is right now bouncing the way it should. However, notice if I move the paddle, it doesn't bounce off the paddle. Notice if I put the paddle over here, it's still bouncing off the edge. So it's not doing what I really want it to do. So now we need to put a program into the paddle so that when the ball touches a paddle, it bounces off. So let's try to do that. So in order to have the ball bounce, we're going to go to Control, and we're going to go back to the paddle sprite. So make sure you click on the paddle sprite or on the paddle object. And now we're going to go to Control, and we're going to use an if statement. If statements they're used in programming all the time. If something happens, I want the program to do this. Or if something happens, so if you think a lot of you play Madden, if the player runs out of bounds, then the play should not continue. It should end where he ran out of bounds. So they happen in all sorts of programming. So in sensing, I'm going to go to touching, and I'm going to plug it there. So it's almost like Lego. The shape will fit in. And I want it when the paddle touches soccer ball. So when it touches a soccer ball, I want a message. And when you think message is almost like telling the program, I want you to do this specific thing. For instance, if you want this ball to bounce, the program doesn't know what bounce means. So we have to explain to the program what bounce means. Almost like in Xbox, if you play Madden, the program doesn't know what a spin move means. You have to explain what a spin move means by saying, okay, the player is going to rotate, or it's going to put his right foot in front of his left foot, or he's going to use his hand and extend it. So you need to explain what it is. So we're going to tell the program what bounce means. So we're going to put new message, and we're going to call it bounce. Okay. And now we're going to explain, we're going to communicate what bounce means to the soccer ball. So we're going to now go to the soccer ball. And on the soccer ball, we're going to explain what this object should do when it receives the message bounce. So let's go to when I receive bounce. And actually, we're gonna pause the video here because it lets me do 15 minutes, and part